You're very welcome to another episode of the Scaling Your Business podcast. I believe it's episode 179. For this episode, delighted to be joined by Leighton Penrose, the co-owner of Leading Social. Leighton, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. You've had some pretty cool guests, so I'm honored.
Well, you'll be on that lineup soon as well. Or to listeners, you're currently on that lineup. Leighton, typical fashion of the show is we go back to the beginning and we just take it from there. So
Cool.
what I know about you is we grew up in the same county, County Meath. I believe it's Bettystown where you're from.
Yeah, that's me, brother.
What was life like growing up in Bettystown?
Cool, yeah. So, what was life like growing up in Batestown? Good question. I really enjoyed primary school. Went to school in Rian in Donacarney. I'm still best friends with all the lads that I would have went with, that I would have grown up with. All my mates were kind of really into football. So when I was younger, I didn't really know what my kind of thing was. I kind of tried out art, MMA. I tried a load of things. I always felt like I was a bit kind of on my own because all the lads loved football and I was the only one that didn't like it. So I didn't know where to put my attention. To kind of fast forward anyway, so when I was like 14 or 15, maybe a bit earlier, 12 or 13, I fell in love with MMA, right? So mixed martial arts. This is kind of 2 or 3 years before Connor had his stardom, and I thought that was going to be it, man. If I'm being honest with you, I thought that was going to be the rest of my life. I loved it. Like, I really loved it. I was proper in the scene. I knew all the best coaches in the country. I knew all the best fighters. It was all I thought about. Like, I was living in Batestown and I was taking two buses and paying for it myself to get into Finglas to go to the best gym that I knew, which was Team Rhino. And it was just all I thought about, man. And I loved it, and I'd brainwash myself with like dream motivation speeches like Les Brown and Jim Ron and Tony Robbins and all those guys. Like every night for about 6 or 7 years, I'd be going to bed listening to motivational speeches and all that kind of thing. So I always had that dreamer in me, or that visionary in me, and I always knew something big was going to happen. And I've carried that with me my whole life. I've kind of got knocked off it a lot, but I've always carried that with me. Anyway, 17 or 18, I kind of start realizing that my parents are pushing me into college and they all want me to go down this route, and I can't. They won't let me commit to be a fighter. And if you want to be a fighter, you have to go all in, man. Like, you really have to be 100% in. There's none of this drinking, hanging out, going to college. If you're going into a ring with someone and you're fighting, so you have to be 100% present, and you have to be completely focused on it, or you're just going to get your head kicked in. So there was an agreement that I was going to try to get a certain amount of points to go to a unit, to go to DCU, so I could be close to the gym in Finglas. Anyway, didn't do well on my leaving cert, wasn't able to go there, but I got enough points to do an arts degree in Maynooth. Once I did the arts degree in Maynooth, I started offering services to local businesses in Drogheda, so real estate agents and restaurants, social media services, content creation, all that kind of thing. And I slowly just stopped training because it was too far, because I was in Maynooth and I really didn't want to be in college, but my parents just kind of made me do it. Anyway, started getting a bit of pocket money with social media marketing, charging €500 here, €700 here, getting a few clients. And eventually, to be honest with you, man, it kind of just snowballed into, 2, 3, 4 grand a month. And I was only like 18. I was working in Fantasia at the time, working on the bowling alley. And one day I kind of realized, fuck, I'm earning more money doing this than I am working in Fantasia. Went on a J1 after Maynooth and came back from the J1 and said, right, I'm not going back to college. I'm just going to go all in on this. Asked my grandmother if I could have a lend of €1,000 to get a new laptop, because I spent all my money on my J1. And from there, I just kind of went all in. 6 months, I was kind of just freelancing, I didn't really make any moves, but then after the 6 months, it really started taking off. And yeah, and then from there, I just kind of scaled it up. Started working with Ask Paul. He was like my biggest case study. And then from there, was able to get bigger clients, charge more money. And now we have Leading Social.
A lot to unpack there.
Sorry if I went on a rant, but
No, you're all good.
That's the story.
The listeners are here for you, not for me. Who's your favorite two fighters on the UFC roster at the moment?
To be honest, I actually don't even follow the UFC anymore.
Wow.
I used to. Did you follow it?
Yeah. I'd watch most weekends.
Yeah, I don't really watch it anymore, dude, to be honest. When I was younger, my favorite fighter was Anthony Rumble Johnson. Remember him?
Yes.
Yeah. He was, and then GSP. I love GSP too.
Yeah, GSP is the GOAT. I think he's one of the very few alongside Tyson Fury, who's managed to retire at the very top and ignore all the media of like, please come back. I do hope
Yeah,
Tyson stays away. As much as I love to see him come back, I
yeah,
think like there's not many people that can go out at the top. Um,
yeah. And I
most
also,
people stay
one of
on
my
too.
biggest inspirations is actually Mike Tyson. I love his story, man. I
Yeah,
love
Mike's a
Tyson.
pretty cool guy. I listen to a lot of his. I think it's called Hotbox or something.
Yeah,
His
hot box.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's make our way to leading social.
Yeah, cool.
But one of the questions I had, and you may have answered it already because you mentioned your grandmother. People can typically on this podcast that have been guests point to a handful of people essentially, of people who have had massive influence, impact in their early years that helped them become the person they are today. Whether
Yeah.
that's a teacher, parents, grandparents. Does anybody spring to mind for you?
So my best friend Matthew. So we've been best friends for since we were like 7 years old, and he's currently on tour with Little Mix, like touring all over the UK and
Wow.
Ireland. Yeah, I'm going over to London next week for their final show. But yeah, he like it was always great to have him there because like like some of the stuff I used to say when I was younger was ridiculous. Like I just used to come out with these like we were chatting about before the podcast, like just mad ideas and just things that just sound so unrealistic, especially growing up in Bettystown, just mad ideas. And some of the things that I've done over the last 2 3 years, it is just crazy. So I was always able to go to Matthew with those ideas, and it was great to have that support. He's like, you can do that, man. Yeah, why not? Like that's so fun. He'd support it. And then my granny, yeah, of course. So and we were having these conversations at the kitchen table with my mom and my auntie and my nana. They'd all be like, "Oh, well, Leighton, you can't be a fighter. You have to go to college and get a nice, stable job, and just a bit of a direction." But then, like when we leave, my nana would say, "Oh, Lay, you can do what you want. It's all right. Don't you do what your heart tells you to do." So yeah, she was always my biggest supporter, to be fair. So yeah, Matthew and my granny for sure.
Awesome. We'll shout out to both of them.
Yeah.
Leading social. For those who are not familiar with it, let's start with you're probably better off giving a 30-second commercial than I am. You'll
Well, I
know more
will.
about it.
Well, I will. So, well, leading social. So, like I said, I was a freelancer I was basically essentially a glorified freelancer over the last 3 years, and I was essentially what you call a lifestyle entrepreneur. So, I was earning enough money to be able to enjoy my life, do good work, enjoyable work, but there was nothing being built. There was nothing exciting really happening. There was nothing that could be passed on, or there was nothing that I could walk away from for 2 weeks and it would still run. It was me. I was essentially just a glorified freelancer. Um, Last year I got kind of a bit dissatisfied, unfulfilled with my work. I wasn't 100% in it, and I made the conscious decision that I do want to build something, and I like the idea of becoming what I suppose, instead of a lifestyle entrepreneur, more of a performance entrepreneur, and
Yeah.
actually building a team and working on projects longer, and working in an office, and all that kind of, rather than traveling around and doing work on my laptop, because yeah, I just lacked that fulfillment element, and it was kind of just knocking at my mental health and stuff, and I just didn't feel great about myself. I was just wasting a lot of time, wasting a lot of potential, I thought.
Yeah.
So Paul Merriman, who is Ask Paul, is a financial advisor, and he obviously knew what I did for him was incredible, or what we did together was incredible, and everything we did for his brand. He went from 10 staff members to 50 staff members. He went from 3,000 followers on Instagram to he'd probably hit 100K in the next week or so. And he said to me, "Look, like, let's get this agency thing going. Like, you have the skill set, you know how the industry works." And Paul is a great case study. So myself and Paul so Leading Social was previously a successful agency and a successful brand in Dublin, and I worked with a lot of really cool clients. I actually worked there for about 4 or 5 months in 2019. It was owned by Jamie White. Last year, that company, Leading Social, sold down all its clients, and Jamie moved on to focus on other projects. But the branding was still there, the name was still there, the domain name, and basically myself and Paul acquired all the assets and the branding of Leading Social, and are now moving forward with building a team and building up that company to what I hope to be in the next 6 months, a nice team of maybe 15 to 20 people, working on mainly performance marketing and opening up a creative side of the house as well.
Wow. And you're located on Harcourt Street at the moment?
So a lot of people would be familiar with Jamie's work on Leading Social, and yeah, so the office is on Harcourt Street at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you've already said you're kind of, if you could wave a magic wand, 6 to 8 months on the line where you'd like to be, but I'd love to talk to you about your kind of growth plans. So when I look at like every quarter, I'll sit down and draw like an X on a like a line down, a line across on a piece of paper, and I'll write KARE in each one of the boxes. It stands for keep, attain, recapture, and expand. It's just called the care tool that I've named it. And I'll look at all the clients that I want to keep, all the accounts that I want to attain, all the ones that I want to recapture, and all the ones I want to expand. And then within that, I can break out individually what I'd like to do on all of them. But focusing on the attain, how do you plan going forward to attain new net logos? Is it through networking? Is it through social media advertising? Is it through, like, talk me through what, like, your top 2 to 3 avenues to attain net new logos over the next 6 to 8 months, so that you can achieve that goal of 15 to 20 staff?
Well, I always like to work. I always like to work backwards, man. And like you know this better than anyone, to be honest. Like everything is a numbers game. So if I know that to like, let's just say for an example, if I know that if I want to be where I want to be, let's say just for argument's sake, for numbers reason, let's just say I needed 10 deals to in order to fulfill my goal of having X. Everyone knows that the best way to approach it is to outreach to 100 people. 35 might get back to you, and then you'd be able to close 10. So I've just been trying to figure that out from a more bird's eye point of view of how the business is going to look from a year. I call it a warm up, but I don't call it a warm up. Sam Evans calls it a warm up. And basically, I just have this calendar on my Google Drive that basically just has the whole year mapped out, and everything is mapped out from like when I'm going to take my holidays, when I want to be at this point in terms of, let's say, revenue, and when I want to be at this point in terms of staff members. And I know exactly where I need to be at each point. And look, if the month finishes and I'm not there, it's more just kind of a reminder that, look, Leighton, you need to get going on this. So in terms of, and I could be better at it, but it does serve me really well when I do keep it consistent. I just have a warm up of a bird's eye view of the whole year. I try look at it daily, definitely weekly, and that just keeps it fresh in my head that I know what I need to do in order to be where I want to be. And sometimes that's numbers, and sometimes that's client success, but it's always there in the back of my mind.
So tell me this: you said that Ask Paul, and I follow Ask Paul, and I know most of my friends my age would follow Ask Paul as well. But you said he's about to hit 100,000 followers on Instagram by the end of this week, hopefully. Is there what's the biggest challenge with clients that are coming to you currently? Yeah, what's the biggest challenge that clients come to you with that are current clients of yours at the moment? Is it standing out online to get the attention that Ask Paul has, or is it something else?
Well, the main thing that I kind of focus on is it is sales, to be honest. So like I'll go into whether it's a service business or whether it's an e-commerce business or whether it's like an online education business. Everyone wants sales. So what I kind of work on is just basically kind of cost to acquire customers, lifetime value, and just being able to scale that up. So like let's say, for example, we used example earlier on, if you are a gym, for example, and your membership is €50 a month, my job is to get you a customer for €25 a month, so you can get them in for 50 and keep them for an average of 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
The biggest. So your question was the biggest problem. The people are just looking for more sales, man. People are looking to put in €100 and get €400 out. And there is, if you do put in a good strategy in place, that can be done if it's complemented with good quality content.
So, yeah, I guess where I was trying to go with that was there's this opinion that like salespeople will look at marketing and kind of laugh at marketing, going, "You're half useless." And marketing people will always get frustrated at sales because they say sales don't help me out, or sales don't didn't take advantage of the lead that I passed them. So I was more wondering from that, is there any common challenges that you see with people coming towards you? I'll give you an example here. I noticed like there's I wouldn't necessarily call it a challenge, but there's something you're going to come up against in the next couple of months. I noticed a post you put up on LinkedIn about hiring people.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the hire. I don't have any staff members over the next while, but you listed a ton of different roles you're looking to hire for. Is there and I'm assuming you've hired before, is there a process that you have when it comes to hiring people? Do you go purely off gut? Do you bring other people involved? Because when it comes to hiring, it can be one of the most, if not the most costly mistake, if you hire a bad person, not just with the cost of their wage, but the cost of missed opportunities of other clients you could have attained from them losing them. So talk me through from that challenge. what does it look like when you've spotted someone that you're interested in? How do you know that, or how do you reduce the chance that they're going to be a bad hire?
Cool. Yeah. So, well, look, so obviously I've only hired twice. So we're a team of three, right?
Yeah.
So I've the two lads up there, and just from I'm just happy to kind of share my experience from what I've learned so far. And I think it'll also be quite cool maybe if we were to do this again in a year or two for us to look back on my answer. Um, so anyway, the two lads that I have now, they reached out to me via Instagram, and they were similar to me. They were guys that weren't satisfied to what they were learning in college, and they knew that they wanted real time experience. And it was just the two lads didn't have any skills. They actually didn't. I've trained them up over the last couple of months, and now they are killers. I completely trust them with all the ad accounts, and they outperform me sometimes in terms of some of the things they do because they brought new ideas. But yeah, it was two hungry lads that wanted to learn, that wanted to get real life experience, and they wanted to get hands on clients. So it's really just someone that I'm cool with working with. I'm cool with having a coffee with at lunch, maybe going for a pint after work, and then also somebody who's just hungry. Because we're a startup, look, I do need someone to maybe open the laptop at 6:30 just to check if all the budgets are lined up, or maybe just to scale up an ad on the weekend if it's doing well. So just somebody who's hungry and wants to do good work, and takes pride in the work. That's as a very early startup. That's where I am now.
How did you see that in those two particular lads?
Just the way just the way they communicated, the way they presented themselves. They were completely transparent. They said, "Look, Leighton, I do not have any skills here. I'm doing a digital marketing course, and I don't feel like I'm learning the right thing. I was wondering if I could, if there was any opportunities to work for you, would it be okay, for me to do it?" And I said, and we did a few interviews, and I brought them in, gave them a few tasks, and they both approached it in certain ways. And yeah, I just said, yeah, I gave them a shot, and it's really served me well because they've allowed me, and this is the things that I'm happy to share, because they've allowed me to maybe take a step back and focus on as I say, work on the business rather than in it. Now I am still quite in the trenches, but I have those extra couple hours a week to do maybe a bit of outreach, or to maybe check in on the clients a bit more and just make sure that they're 100% comfortable with everything that's going on. And the two guys are killing the performance marketing element of it. And they're all, another thing is, like, on Saturdays and Sundays, they'd be sending me pictures of them doing courses and upskilling themselves, and that's how you couldn't ask for much more than that as a startup founder. Like,
Sounds like you found two rock solid guys to help you build this potential rocket ship. You've mentioned a few things that you do there in the business as well. Is there a particular thing that you have a preference to do? Like, what's your favorite part of your job?
getting results, man. I love it. I just love getting results. Like, if someone gives me a certain amount of money and then I'm able to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10x it, I just love it. Like, it just gives me a high, man.
I first came across you from your YouTube videos.
Cool.
That's how you became on my radar. And I've had the same comment from people before, Rian, I first heard you on the podcast you did. Rian, I first heard you from this video. There's not many people out there putting out videos online, but I've seen you started to do them again on LinkedIn, whether 60-second or 90-second videos.
Yeah.
Share with the audience, like, what goes through your head? Like, do you have a number of videos you want to record a week? Do you keep a note on your iPad or your iPhone? Do you just have an idea and go, whatever the person in the corner room is, take your camera out, we're going to record this? Like, what is it?
Well, first off, I'll tell you why I do it. The reason why I do it is, and I almost get frustrated with myself with how I haven't been consistent with it, because it's such a valuable thing to be doing, to be just putting out the videos. Like, that's how I got the lads. That's how I got the lads to work for me. The lads watched the videos, and then they were like, "Oh, you seem like you're doing cool stuff." And it was then when me and Paul made the decision to lead in social, and then I had to do this. I wouldn't have found them if I wasn't posting online. And then I've got some fabulous clients that have really become very close friends off the back of the videos too. So I'm almost upset that I haven't kept consistent with it. So yeah, but in terms of, when I was doing it first on myself, it was kind of just doing it on my camera and chopping it up and putting making the thumbnails myself. I realized that I don't enjoy doing the uploading and the thumbnail stuff and all that stuff. So I got a freelancer to come in once every 2 weeks, and he comes in and we shoot for 2 hours. And then that's the content done for a month. So if you go onto my Instagram and you see all my reels, all those videos were done in the space of 2 hours. And now he goes home, he edits them, he gets the subtitles on it, and then they're just distributed over the course of 2 or 3 weeks. Just because I know I want to do it, and he helps with the ideas as well. I know I want to do it. I know it's important, but for some reason, it's just not something that I jump out of bed to get done, and it's not something I prioritize. Although I really do enjoy the feedback that I get back. It's really nice to be able to for someone to say, "Oh, dude, I really enjoyed that video." So I would recommend for anybody that wants to start doing it, if you have the resources to get a freelance videographer / editor, do it. And just go down, sit down for 4 or 5 hours, get a month worth of content, and let them distribute it for you.
I like that you've blocked out time every 2 weeks to make sure that you do get it done, because as you've said, there's tons of benefits from getting on the radar of those two guys that are now working with you, and I'm sure there's tons of others. Even from my perspective, starting a podcast, I found it so much easier to open doors because I can bounce off someone who's been on the podcast to get an introduction to someone else, and they'll talk to me because the person that's introduced them to they know relatively well, and there's 10 other things I can list off other than just acquiring net new clients that is advantageous for starting a podcast or putting in videos.
One thing I was going to add on to that, like
Yeah.
besides just the generic people seeing it online, if you're meeting people, it's all online, as we always do. Like, we never met in person, but
Yeah.
you know me and I know you. But people can get a feel for you. They can understand how you communicate, how you think, what kind of person you are. So I think it's just a great idea to have content out there.
Absolutely. I chat to people like once or twice a month that I've never met before, and I've chatted to them for
Yeah.
3-4 years. It's crazy. Like, there's that Thomas Arnold, I know, who works with you guys as well. Like, I've
Yeah.
chatted to him for maybe a year and a half and not once ever met him.
It's crazy.
I don't know what industry you want to put yourself in here: online marketing, digital marketing, marketing in general,
Paid advertising.
paid advertising. So in the paid advertising industry, is there a commonly held belief that you, let's say, passionately disagree with?
That's an interesting question. In the paid advertising space, yeah, that you need a lot of money to get results, which is not true at all. A lot of people come to me, particularly local businesses and small businesses, and they're saying, "Look, I don't have the budget to do this paid advertising thing at all." If you're putting out content and you're putting out organic content and you're getting a bit of a reach out of it, and like, let's say you're the local superstar in your local town, the benefit of you putting 50 or 100 quid into a retargeting ad for maybe a certain offer, or maybe a certain maybe if you're local restaurants, you are doing like a Friday date night where it's like 50 quid for like a 2-course meal and a bottle of wine. The power that you're able to do with going into paid advertising, going into Facebook Ads Manager, creating an audience of people who viewed your Instagram profile over the last year, and then putting €100 into it, it's phenomenal. You don't need a lot of money to make it happen. Now, if you want to scale things up like a rocket ship, yeah, money, you need to spend money to make money. But when I kind of work with people, we tend to, well, some people like to go all at it, but I tend to go slow and steady, show them the results, they can see that it's working, and then we can start ramping it up. We can start using the cash that we've after making to then recycle it back into the funnels or into the advertising.
You're a startup business. I'm a firm believer that there's skills out there or behaviors that other startup founders sometimes overlook that can be detrimental to their business, particularly in the beginning. Is there a skill, perhaps networking, that you see other startup founders ignore and doesn't get them to their goal as fast as they could get to?
Not sure other people, man, but like just myself. I mean, one thing that I've recently started doing, like, I mean, we're both in our 20s. Sometimes, we both have big dreams, but like, I did have to just audit my environment. Do you know, kind of way? I needed to just make sure that I was, putting the right stuff in here, talking to the right people, and watching the right content. Not being so before I was in the apartment I'm in now. I was living in a house with my 3 mates, and they're 3 of my best mates. We had great fun, and we'd have a few drinks on the weekend, and we'd bring people back and have a little party and stuff. But in order for me to be the person that I wanted to be, I had to make the conscious decision of saying, "Look, lads, I can't live here because it doesn't really align with my goals." So just little things like that just kind of put you in the right direction. Like, you need to do yourself a service and audit your environment so you can live out to your full potential, and that you can be the person that you want to be and the person you desire to be. And for me, that meant moving out of the house. It meant limiting certain relationships with certain people, certain communications with certain people. Because you know yourself, like I mean, the lads are going out every weekend and they're inviting you all the time. It's very hard to say no sometimes, especially when you want to open up the laptop at 9 o'clock on a Saturday and 9 o'clock on a Sunday and get some work done. So yeah, so look, that I think that's more of advice from a startup founder in their 20s. Really, that's where I'm coming from with that, and it served me really well because it was something that I need to do. Um, and then yeah, just in general, inputs and outputs, just everything that goes in here is gonna have a correlation with what's going out, and that means what you're reading, what you're watching, the conversations that you're having. Um, One thing that's worked really well with working here with Thomas is that like we're just constantly talking to each other about revenue, client success, customer success, and just people and just conversations that really stimulate activity in the mind on what we're currently doing. So yeah, just auditing your environment, making sure that that everything that you're doing is in correlation with your goals, and really just giving everything a good go and living up to your full potential.
Is there a tool that you can't live without? Business for your business.
I have a software, Notion.
Okay.
Dude,
You
it's
use Notion a lot then?
yeah, dude, it's incredible. It's actually it's a game changer because I'm not a very organized guy. I'm a visionary. I'm not very just organized or technical. So I was able to. I've created a really cool system within Notion. So we have like our weekly team task list that everyone kind of slides over the task. We have our client check-in checklist that happens every Monday and Thursday. We have a good 5-10 minute chat with the client just to fill them in on everything that's happening and answer any questions they have. We have our CRM, which kind of shows where people are going within the sales process. So yeah, Notion's phenomenal because it's really allowed me to kind of create the tools that I want with myself. So yeah, it's great. Just out of curiosity, do you have any that you can't live without?
HubSpot.
Yeah, yeah. I obviously use HubSpot for clients, but I don't really use it for myself.
As part of a global deal, there's an 80% discount because I'm part of a network that you get on HubSpot. So it's a couple of $100 a month now instead of a couple of grand, and
Yeah.
it's just phenomenal. Just to keep an eye on people. I've built that a kind of a deal stage process of like, establish relationship to opportunity identification to first call to all the way to like one or like close one or close lost, and just to see that. And there's 10 other things that you have that just you can follow the process, and then to keep an eye on people, and it lets you know, like, if I go and type in your name in the system, it'll be like Leighton has opened this email, has clicked on this PDF, has read 30% of it and gave up here, and you can just have the full process. There's probably another 10 things I'm missing, but some of the tools out there. I know you've just said you're a big Notion junkie. Like I'd be addicted to HubSpot as well.
Yeah, no, it is cool. See, another thing, like I just personally wouldn't have the head to manage HubSpot. I think there's so much going on that almost scares me. Does that make sense?
It scared the hell out of me too, man. But we got a guy from Newtown Mount Kennedy, Andrew. I can't remember his second name. Mount Arbor is the company, and paid him a fee for came in for 3 days straight, and it was just 10 hours a day for 3 days, and then follow up training once a week for 3 hours, probably for about 2 months. And I still, as part of the HubSpot customer success team, they put an hour in your calendar once a month as well to kind of continue to improve.
So one thing I like about Notion, and just because I just want my head to be as clean as possible so I can focus on the right things, is that like with Notion, we only create something when there's a problem. So it was like, right, look, where are we managing all the tasks? Okay, cool. Let's do up a weekly task manager. Okay, cool. Well, where are we keeping all the leads? Okay, cool. Let's create a CRM. Okay, but where are we keeping all the strategies that we're creating? Okay, cool. Let's create a folder where we keep all the PDFs of all our strategies that we use. And then like, what's our onboarding process? Okay, cool. Let's make a folder. So like if someone needs something, it's there. So it's being created as we grow. Does that make sense? Whereas for me personally with HubSpot, there's so much going on, there's so much to manage that I just wouldn't do anything. Does that make you mean?
Yeah. It is a mammoth of a tool. Like, I've known it for years. It was only when I put my hand in my pocket and paid a couple of grand to get trained on it, I was like, well, I'm not going to waste the money. Like, I better learn this.
It's great as well because it actually it integrates with the ads managers too, so you can see all you can see the success of your ad campaigns within HubSpot. So like it's a 10 out of 10 software, to be fair, but it's just, for me, it's just too much.
Oh, I'm only probably doing 1 out of 10 things in it anyway at the moment. Final question for you, Leighton. If you were Minister for Education and you were tasked with adding a new mandatory subject to the secondary school curriculum, what would the subject be and why?
Financial well-being.
Interesting. That and business and coding are usually the top 3 out of the last 180 episodes.
Really? Okay, maybe I should have went for something a bit more creative. But that's the truth, though. I mean, I do like the amount, so this, I'm only saying because I've worked with Paul for the last 2 years and I've just made much more better financial decisions. But like, I don't know, like when I did Leaving Cert Business, like when I left Leaving Cert Business, I had no idea what I didn't know. I had no idea that I needed to what I needed to get a mortgage. I had no idea how to do my taxes, or just even the idea of investing. Like the whole thing about investing in like a standard index fund and it returning you 8%, like that should be at least mentioned once. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's nothing. It's weird the way they kind of hide away from that kind of stuff, because it's just almost like they don't want to tell you. No, I don't get it. But yeah, financial well-being. Because
would you have listened to it though when you were 16 or 17?
yeah, for sure. Because I think when I was a teenager, I definitely recognized that that finances were correlated with standard of living and the ability to be able to just live, I suppose. So yeah, I think I myself, and I think a lot of people would definitely take on board if a teacher sat down with me and said, look, when you do finish college and when you do get your first job, it's important that maybe you're able to save up X amount, and just to let you know that when you do ever want to buy a house, you're gonna need your 10%, and then you're also going to need to be able to show 6 months prior renting, or maybe a deposit into an investing account to show that you can pay your mortgage. Like none of this was taught to me. Like I'm honestly, I'm mind blown. I really am mind blown. But
so
yeah.
You've spent some time working with Ask Paul. For anyone who's been living under a rock and isn't familiar with what he does, why don't you take some time to give him a shout out at exactly what it is, so that if anybody is interested, they can contact him? Because I know you can pay for an hour of his team's time to kind of go through shit with him.
Yeah. No, in fairness, but another reason why I love working with Paul is because there's actually no calculating the actual return on investment, because I genuinely think that he has had such an impact on the majority of Ireland's financial decisions, because through the content that he's creating, whether they've done consultations or not, everybody's taken on board 1 or 2 things that he said. And I'm finding that with my friends that are between the age of 20 and 27, 28, like they're just like, oh, but you know what, like I have started putting away a few bob every month after listening to him, and people are able to have conversations about mortgages. They're able to prepare before they even consider it. So yeah, no, in fairness, I'm delighted to be working with him, because the content really does help a lot of people. And that's another thing with even with your podcast. Like you don't know who's watching. You don't know. And one little nugget that you say, or one little nugget that anyone says, could plant a seed in someone's brain to have phenomenal success in their life. And I think it's a cool thing.
Yeah, no, you're right. I get messages sometimes. Hey, I love this clip when so and so mentioned this, and I'm like,
cool.
What are you talking about? And they're like, oh, you interviewed this person a couple of weeks ago. So no, it is cool. Leighton, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. Wishing you continued success in Harcourt Street. Maybe you'll get to expand out of there one day, but you've got plenty around at the moment. But yeah, thanks again for being my guest today.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. And you asked some really good questions.